Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to demystify one of the absolutely most profound and honestly misunderstood psychological concepts out there right now: shame. We're drawing from the groundbreaking work of John Bradshaw in his book, Healing the Shame That Binds You. We'll be exploring how shame literally shapes our core identity, how it fuels our deepest addictions, and how it propagates completely silently through our family systems across generations. It's a fascinating, if sometimes a little heavy, journey into the human psyche. Let's get into it.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the dual nature of shame, how it actually differs from guilt, the addictive shame cycle, dysfunctional family rules, and then finally, we'll look at a really eye-opening multi-generational case study.
All right, part one, the dual nature of shame, finding the boundary.
To truly wrap our heads around this topic, we've kind of got to flip conventional wisdom completely upside down. You see, shame isn't inherently bad. John Bradshaw actually began his whole exploration with a massive realization. He said, 10 years ago, I had one of those life-jolting discoveries. I named the core demon in my life. I named shame. And honestly, naming this hidden force is that crucial first step to differentiating between the shame that helps us and the shame that destroys us.
Because there is a stark contrast here. Healthy shame is actually nourishing. Think of it like a deeply rooted tree. It keeps us grounded. It signals our natural limits, reminding us that, hey, we aren't gods, and it basically gives us permission to make mistakes. But when that healthy emotion gets internalized into toxic shame, well, it stops being something you feel and becomes something you are. Bradshaw describes it as an irremediable internal bleeding. It's a devastating rupture where you genuinely believe your core identity is fundamentally flawed. Moving on to part two, shame versus guilt, identity versus action. Now, since we understand that toxic shame is an identity issue, we really need to untangle it from guilt because people mix these up all the time. Healthy guilt is all about an action. It tells you, I made a mistake, I crossed a line with my values, and because it's about an action, you can apologize, you can make amends, you can repair the damage. Toxic shame, on the other hand, is about your identity. It tells you, I am a mistake. Because the fault lies in your very being, repair feels totally impossible. You can't just fix who you fundamentally are, right? And that leads to feelings of intense hopelessness and this desperate need to hide your true self from the world.
Which brings us to part three, the addictive shame cycle, or the squirrel cage.
Because toxic shame creates this unbearable, agonizing hole in the soul, we are driven to escape that pain through mood-altering experiences. Welcome to the world's worst hamster wheel. It starts with this false belief system screaming, I am flawed and defective. That unbearable pain leads right into distorted thinking, basically the idea that you need something outside of yourself, whether that's alcohol, food, or even work, just to feel okay. So you act out for a momentary escape, right? A fleeting ecstasy. But inevitably, you suffer life-damaging consequences. And guess what? Those consequences just generate more shame, which feeds right back into that core belief.
Let's break down that acting out phase for a second. It literally progresses through 4 distinct steps: obsessing, rituals, the act itself, and finally, remorse and metashame. Now, metashame is simply feeling ashamed about your shameful behavior. If you've ever beaten yourself up for eating an entire box of cookies and then eaten more cookies because you felt so bad about it, yeah, you've experienced this. It just dumps toxic shame right back into your core identity, spinning that cage faster and faster. Part 4, dysfunctional family rules, the breeding ground of shame. So where does this deep-seated toxic identity actually come from? I mean, nobody is born feeling like a fundamental mistake. It stems, fundamentally, from abandonment. It is so often this invisible emotional void. It's narcissistic deprivation, where a child is basically used to fulfill the parent's emotional needs. Lacking the essential mirroring that a kid needs to develop a healthy sense of self, the child literally abandons their own authentic self just to keep the parent happy. And this environment operates through unwritten, totally covert rules. We're talking about the control of all interactions at all times, perfectionism that demands some unattainable ideal, constant blame, the infamous no-talk rule, which prohibits the expression of any real feelings, loneliness, or needs, and the golden mandate, don't make mistakes. These rules consciously shame all the family members, forcing everyone to adopt rigid, false personas just to survive an environment that's completely paralyzed by emotional unreliability. Let's move to part 5, multi-generational toxic shame, Max's story. To really grasp the gravity of this whole thing, let's look at a composite case from Bradshaw's files. Meet Max. Max is our everyman of toxic shame. On paper, he's a gifted 44-year-old sales engineer. Doing great, right? But beneath that successful facade, Max had abruptly abandoned his life, his wives, and his 5 children 9 different times. He'd take these menial jobs and act out severe addictions just to escape his inner emptiness. So how did he get here?
When we look at the wiring of his childhood, we immediately see the roots of profound trauma. His father, Jerome, was an alcoholic who abandoned the family. His mother, Felicia, played the codependent martyr, reeling from her own horrific history of abuse. This environment wasn't just slightly dysfunctional, it was emotionally devastating. To survive all this chaos, the children couldn't just be children. They had to step up and try to somehow balance the family mobile. In this frozen, shame-based trance, the kids were forced to adopt rigid survival roles. Max's older brother became the hero and the surrogate spouse. His sister became a lost child, just trying to stay completely invisible. And eventually, Max became the family scapegoat, drinking and running away by age 15. Unconsciously, the family focused all their attention on Max's erratic behavior, so they wouldn't have to face their own agonizing pain. He tragically became the sacrificial carrier of the family's disease. And here's the kicker. Zooming out to Max's mother, Felicia, we see that she didn't invent this dysfunction out of nowhere, she inherited it. Her own mother was an untreated victim of severe trauma and abuse, passing down this awful legacy of repressed sexuality and codependency. Felicia learned to be a surrogate spouse to her own father, an emotional pattern she then tragically repeated with her son. The exact same haunting pattern exists on Max's father's side, too. Jerome was abandoned by his father at age 8 and raised by a codependent mother who subjected him to emotional incest. Jerome passed down the exact legacy of abandonment he received, leaving Max at the very same age his father had left him. It's just a devastating, entirely unconscious repetition. And tragically, when we look at Max's own immediate family, his 5 children spanning 3 different marriages, we see the toxic secret is still alive and well. We see the exact same rigid roles blossoming in the newest generation. Max actually died of emphysema at age 52, which was the exact same age his father died, carrying the untreated shame of, get this, 5 generations. Because the family roles demanded absolute silence, the underlying wound was just never exposed to the light of healing. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take a moment and reflect on your own family tree. Think about the rules you grew up with and the way you personally process your own mistakes. Ask yourself, is the shame you feel simply a healthy, grounding reminder that you are a limited, imperfect, but beautiful human being? Or is it a toxic inheritance, an unwritten family rule whispering that you are fundamentally flawed, just waiting to be brought out of the shadows and into the light?